What if the United States already lost the most important economic race of the 21st century, and most people just don't know it yet? Right now, China controls over 80% of the world's battery production. It dominates solar panels, electric vehicles, and the minerals that every green technology on the planet depends on. It is building railways, ports, and digital infrastructure across more than 150 countries. And it is investing $70 billion in a single program to master the chips that power artificial intelligence. This is not a future scenario. This is happening today in 2026. We are not watching a country trying to catch up. We are watching a country that has decided to lead, and it is spending accordingly. The question is not whether China is rising. The question is whether the rest of the world understands what that means for jobs, for technology, for energy, and for the balance of global power. Let's look at the evidence.
Moconomy Spotlight.
The year is 2026. China is at one of the most decisive moments in its modern economic history. The world's second largest economy is no longer simply growing. It is deliberately repositioning itself as the architect of the 21st century's economic order. While the United States tightens tariffs and restricts access to sensitive technologies, Beijing responds with a clear strategy. That strategy combines technological self-sufficiency, leadership in clean energy, control over critical supply chains, and an unprecedented global expansion of infrastructure. The 15th five-year plan, covering 2026 through 2030, was formally approved by the 20th Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. It was published at the start of this year. It represents the most ambitious roadmap China has ever designed. The core idea is simple but profound. Stop competing on cost and start competing on technological control. This essay examines the 5 pillars of China's rise. First, artificial intelligence and semiconductors. Second, the green energy transition. Third, the control of critical minerals and supply chains. Fourth, the expansion of the Belt and Road Initiative. And fifth, the consolidation of advanced manufacturing. The evidence comes from serious independent sources. These include the International Monetary Fund, the Green Finance and Development Center, the United Nations, Reuters, and the Financial Times. The conclusion they all point to is the same. China is not just growing, it is rewriting the rules of the global economy. Part 1. Artificial Intelligence and Semiconductors, the Race for Technological Independence. No sector carries more investment or more geopolitical tension than artificial intelligence and semiconductors. In 2026, Beijing is preparing a financial support program for its chip industry. According to Bloomberg, this program could reach $70 billion. That would surpass China's own Big Fund 3, which reached $47 billion. It would also approach the scale of the United States CHIPS Act, the Creating Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors Act, which committed $52 billion to domestic chip production. The goal is clear: develop Chinese processors that can compete with those made by NVIDIA. The main beneficiaries would be Huawei and Cambricon, 2 of China's leading chip companies. But the semiconductor investment is only part of the story. China's artificial intelligence strategy goes much further than manufacturing chips. The government's Artificial Intelligence Plus program aims to extend AI across every productive sector. The declared target is to integrate artificial intelligence into 90% of the Chinese economy by 2030. By the end of 2025, China had already reached 1.59 million petaflops of intelligent computing capacity. That placed it second in the world, behind only the United States, according to the country's latest digital development report. This infrastructure rests on 10.85 million standard server racks and more than 1,680 exabytes of storage. Now, here is what matters most. China may be behind in the most advanced chip technology. Export restrictions from Washington are a real barrier there. But China has found something equally powerful. It has become formidable in large-scale development. Chinese chip manufacturers can produce processors that are good enough for most real-world artificial intelligence tasks. Specifically, they handle inference workloads well. Inference is the stage where an AI system applies what it has already learned to new situations. Inference is today the dominant use of computing in data centers worldwide. ByteDance, the Beijing-based company that owns TikTok, illustrates this momentum well. According to the Financial Times, ByteDance plans to spend approximately $23 billion in capital expenditures in 2026. About half of that will go towards acquiring semiconductors for artificial intelligence development. The Chinese AI ecosystem is not built around a single champion. It combines disruptive startups like DeepSeek, whose low-cost model caused a global stir, with established giants like Alibaba, Baidu, and Tencent. Each is investing heavily in AI agents, cloud computing, and enterprise platforms. This industry is no longer competing just for geopolitical visibility. It is pushing global prices down, accelerating innovation cycles, and forcing a rethink of how artificial intelligence business models work worldwide. Part 2. The Green Energy Transition, Clean Power as a Strategic Lever. If there is one sector where China has won clearly and decisively, it is the energy transition. In May of 2026, the United Nations top climate official visited Beijing. He praised what he called China's wise long-term vision. He pointed out that China's massive investment in renewable energy had shielded its population from the worst effects of global energy instability. This matters especially now as oil prices have climbed above $100 per barrel due to tensions in the Middle East. The numbers speak clearly. China is today the world's leading producer of solar energy, wind energy, batteries, and electric vehicles. Its targets for wind and solar capacity, originally set for 2030, were reached 6 years early. Investment in clean energy surpassed $625 billion in 2024, and it keeps growing. Electric vehicles now account for 50% of new car sales inside China. The government had originally set a target of 20% by 2025, reality far exceeding the plan. China also holds close to 60% of global electric vehicle sales. BYD, one of China's leading electric vehicle companies, saw its overseas sales grow 65% year over year in March of 2026 alone. The International Energy Agency estimates that global electric vehicle sales could reach 23 million units in 2026. That would represent roughly 30% of all new vehicles sold worldwide. Chinese manufacturers are at the center of this. They also control more than 80% of the global battery market. That industrial advantage is very difficult for any competitor to overcome quickly. Innovation continues at pace. CATL, which stands for Contemporary Amperex Technology Company Limited, the world's largest battery manufacturer, has presented a battery offering 1,500 kilometers of range on a 6-minute charge. The United Nations estimates that China's electric vehicles will save the country more than $28 billion in oil imports in 2026 alone. China is not reacting to the clean energy transition. It is leading it. When the world looks for energy security in an era of volatile fossil fuel prices, the road runs through Beijing. Part 3. Critical minerals and supply chains. The quiet form of control. One of the least visible but most consequential aspects of China's economic expansion is its command over critical minerals. These are the raw materials that make the green economy possible. A report from Climate Energy Finance, an independent research organization, published in March of 2026, revealed that China has spent more than $120 billion abroad to secure access to these resources. But the story goes beyond raw material extraction. Since early 2023, Chinese companies have also invested more than $220 billion in downstream industries. These include battery manufacturing, electric vehicles, power grids, and solar and wind infrastructure. Together, these investments form what researchers describe as a vertically integrated global clean technology expansion. In plain terms, China controls the full chain, from the mine to the finished product. The geography of this control is striking. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Chinese companies have expanded their grip on copper and cobalt production. In Indonesia, Chinese-backed investment has helped transform the country into the world's largest producer and processor of nickel. In the so-called lithium triangle of Latin America, spanning Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, Beijing has secured long-term supply agreements that will cover decades of future demand. Beyond lithium and cobalt, China also controls a substantial share of rare earth processing. Rare earths are essential for electric motors, wind turbines, and defense technology. The position gives China a structural lever over the global economy. The logic is straightforward. Whoever controls critical minerals controls, to a large degree, the pace and cost of the global energy transition. Part 4. The Belt and Road Initiative, Building a New Global Architecture. The Belt and Road Initiative is China's flagship program for global infrastructure investment. It was launched in 2013 by President Xi Jinping. In 2025, it reached record levels. According to the Green Finance and Development Center, total engagement through the construction contracts and investments reached $213.5 billion. That was 19% more than the previous year. Since the initiative began, cumulative investment has surpassed $1.4 trillion across more than 150 countries. In 2026, the Belt and Road Initiative is entering what Beijing calls a high-quality cooperation phase. Projects are becoming more focused, more technology-driven, and more sustainable. Financing mechanisms are shifting too. There is a greater emphasis on equity participation rather than pure debt. This shift responds to international criticism about excessive borrowing in recipient countries. But it also reflects a deeper strategic logic. Building ports and roads is no longer enough. The new goal is to have recipient countries adopt Chinese technology, financing systems, and management frameworks. This creates lasting relationships of economic and technological interdependence. One of the most significant projects currently underway is the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway. This $4.7 billion rail link will create a shorter, more cost-effective overland route for freight between China and Europe through Central Asia. It will reduce transit times significantly compared to maritime shipping. Geopolitically, the Belt and Road Initiative has become China's main vehicle for promoting a multipolar world order. Through platforms like the BRICS Group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus newer members, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Beijing is building an alternative framework of global governance. This framework directly challenges institutions led by the West. Part 5. Advanced Manufacturing, the New Productive Model. The central ambition of the 15th Five-Year Plan is a fundamental transformation of China's productive model. For decades, China was the world's factory. Low wages, abundant labor, and massive investment in production capacity drove extraordinary growth. That model served its purpose, but it also reached its limits. Today, the plan accelerates what the Chinese government calls new quality productive forces. This means sectors where growth depends less on volume and more on innovation. The government wants China to compete not on price, but on technological control. The numbers already reflect this transition. Batteries, solar panels, and electric vehicles, what Beijing officially calls the new three industries, already represents 10% of China's gross domestic product in 2024. Gross domestic product, of course, is the total value of goods and services a country produces. The next wave of bets includes robotics, quantum computing, brain-computer interfaces, and biotechnology. China currently accounts for 32% of global investment and generates 1/3 of the world's manufactured goods. But the strategic objective is to move into the center of value chains, to define industrial standards, and to increase China's influence over how the global economy works. That said, the model faces a structural tension. The plan itself acknowledges it. Domestic demand remains too weak. China produces enormous volumes, but consumes only 13% of global output. This generates excess capacity, which in turn feeds trade tensions with the rest of the world. To address this, the plan proposes what it calls ordering competition. This means regulating production capacity, intervening in pricing, and encouraging company mergers to reduce market fragmentation. At the same time, the plan seeks to stimulate domestic consumption through income redistribution and the expansion of social welfare programs. These are reforms China has been postponing for decades. Conclusion: China and the New World Economic Order. The picture that emerges from the evidence available in 2026 is clear. China is not merely growing, it is actively building the conditions to lead the global economy of the 21st century. Its strategy rests on 4 advantages accumulated over decades of investment. First, unmatched industrial scale. Second, long-term state planning. Third, control over critical supply chains. And fourth, a technological capacity that, even with real limitations, advances at a pace that surprises even the most skeptical analysts. The tensions with the United States, tariffs, technology restrictions, competition for influence across the global South, are not slowing this trajectory. They are accelerating it. Every Western sanction has functioned as an additional incentive for Chinese technology self-sufficiency. Export controls on semiconductors have not weakened China's artificial intelligence industry. They have increased public investment in domestic chips and stimulated the development of more efficient AI models. The world stands at a genuine fork in the road. One path runs through fossil fuels and Western technology. The other runs through electrification, renewable energy, and Chinese advanced manufacturing. On the second path, Beijing is no longer a challenger. It is the architect. The question is no longer whether China will become the world's leading economic power. The question is when, and under what conditions the rest of the world will find a way to navigate that new reality.